To further understand how and why hair grows, we need to understand the chemical composition of the hair. Our learning objective for this lesson is to identify and explain the 3 types of side bonds in the cortex. First, we need to understand that hair is composed of protein that grows from cells originating within the hair follicle. As these living cells form, they begin a journey upward through the hair follicle. They mature in a process called keratinization. As these newly formed cells mature, they fill with keratin. After they have filled with keratin, the cells move upward, lose their nucleus, and die. By the time the hair shaft emerges from the skin surface, the cells of the hair are keratinized and are no longer living. This keratin protein is composed of 5 major elements. Hopefully, you have all seen and have a basic understanding of the periodic table of elements prior to this lesson. Take a moment to look over the table and refresh your memory. The 5 elements that create the keratin protein that make up the hair's chemical composition include 51% carbon, 21% oxygen, 6% hydrogen, 17% nitrogen, and 5% sulfur. These elements are often referred to as the Cohen's elements. Each element is referred to as an amino acid. The hair is composed by linking these amino acids together. The amino acids are linked together end-to-end by peptide or N bonds. When amino acids and peptide bonds are linked together, like pop beads, they create a polypeptide chain. A keratin protein is formed when polypeptide chains coil into a spiral shape called a helix. The cortex of the hair is composed of an unimaginable number of keratin proteins that are intertwined and cross-linked together by side bonds. It is how these keratin proteins are formed and linked with others that create the shape of the hair strand. It is by understanding these side bonds that we are able to effect change in the shape of the hair. Side bonds are responsible for the extreme strength and elasticity of human hair. They are essential to services such as wet setting, thermal styling, and permanent waving. There are 3 types of side bonds found in the hair. Hydrogen bonds account for 1/3 of the hair's total strength. There are more hydrogen bonds in the hair than salt or disulfide bonds. Hydrogen bonds are the weakest of all side bonds, being weaker than either salt or disulfide bonds. Hydrogen bonds will effect a physical change only in the hair. Hydrogen bonds can be broken by applying water or heat to the hair, and they are rebuilt by drying or cooling the hair. Salt bonds also account for 1/3 of the hair's total strength. There are not as many salt bonds as there are hydrogen bonds, but there are way more salt bonds than there are disulfide bonds. Salt bonds are not as weak as hydrogen bonds, but they are weaker than disulfide bonds. Salt bonds will only effect a physical change in the hair. Salt bonds are broken by changing the hair's pH balance and are rebuilt by rebalancing the hair's pH. Disulfide bonds account for 1/3 of the hair's total strength. There are fewer disulfide bonds than either salt or hydrogen bonds. Disulfide bonds are the strongest of the 3 types of side bonds, stronger than both salt and hydrogen bonds. Disulfide bonds effect a chemical change in the hair, meaning they can only be broken by the chemicals found in permanent waves and chemical relaxers, and can only be rebuilt by the neutralization process of those chemicals. The disulfide bond joins the sulfur atoms of 2 neighboring polypeptide chains to create a cysteine. The chemicals found in permanent waves and the glycolate acid-based hair relaxers breaks this disulfide bond and rebuilds it during the neutralization process. A lanthionine bond is created when the chemicals found in hydroxide relaxers break the disulfide bonds beyond a point where they can be rebuilt with a neutralizer. Once lanthionization has taken place, those disulfide bonds can never be rebuilt. Melanin is the tiny grains of pigment in the cortex that give natural color to the hair. Eumelanin is the type of melanin that provides the black and brown colors to the hair. Pheomelanin is the type of melanin that provides the red and blonde colors to hair. Everyone has both types of melanin present in their hair, however, each individual will have more of one type of melanin than the other, giving all persons a unique and personal, natural hair color. The wave pattern of the hair refers to the shape of the hair strand. Wave patterns are described as straight, wavy, curly, and extremely curly. Natural wave patterns are determined by heredity and are formed by the shape of the hair follicle. By understanding the natural, chemical composition of the hair and how the side bonds create the natural shape of the hair strand, we can better understand how to affect both physical and chemical methods of change in the hair.